Yes, yes, you read it correctly. I think it is a great time to buy some international flights.
We got everything we need right here. Wine and burning chemistry. You and me alone. You and me alone. Inside of our embassy.
But you got to hear me out here. This is a touchy topic, especially for travelers to talk about. And I say that because you have to have a sense of self-awareness when watching this, or for me even making it, because the perspective that I'm coming from is a 25-year-old budget traveler who's got time in his schedule right now and in the foreseeable year. So for me, it's a perfect time to buy flights, book them about 5-6 months out, because everything is currently priced for COVID, but hopefully by then it won't be so COVID tiny. Now, whether or not it's perfect time for you to buy a ticket, that's up to you to decide. You got to think about your age, you got to think about your risk level, you got to think about your budget, your time. If you're traveling as a whole family, that has different implications than if you're traveling solo. You got to think about where you want to travel, whether they're open to your country, United States predominantly, because I imagine that's who's watching this video the most, and where I'm coming from. And you got to assess your personal level of comfort with the virus and how afraid of it you are and all of those types of things. I'm not trying to call anybody out. I'm not trying to say, oh, you should be this way or that way. I'm just saying you need to know you above all else. Now, like I said, my perspective is coming from a 25-year-old budget traveler who tends to be on the riskier side when it comes to travel. I take more risks than a lot of people would choose to. That's just my perspective. Now, the first thing I want to talk about before really diving deep on this topic is people across the globe have witnessed this virus and this pandemic on a complete spectrum. I mean, let's take Australia for an example. They had their numbers almost down to nothing. I know in the state of New South Wales and Victoria, it was almost down to nothing. And then they had a small spike. I say spike, but it's like a couple cases, and they threw all of the restrictions back on. As far as I'm aware, the mask policy, you have to have the mask when you go inside, social distancing and those things. Obviously, it's a little bit less than the US, but their cases are far less. To the amount of cases that they had, to the action that they took, it's a whole nother level than we see here in the US. For example, I want to grab this because I wrote some numbers down on it and I want to be accurate. Today, as of January 5th, Melbourne had 15 new cases. That's roughly 5 million people in that city, 15 new cases. So I took similar statistics from the US, that of Alabama and that of Colorado, which is roughly, Alabama's about 5 million people. In Alabama today, there were 2,100 new cases. Well, Colorado is roughly about 5.8 million people. In Colorado, there were 2,700 new cases. Like, those numbers aren't even close. So that's the perspective that people in Australia would have of this virus. Now, people here in the US, it lands on a spectrum. I was just out in California recently where they're basically back down on cold purple lockdown because their ICU units, their hospitals are getting so full that they can't take in any more patients. So you can't sit down at restaurants inside. They're very strict on the policies, social distancing. They have regional stay-at-home order mandates out in the state right now. And here where I am in New Orleans, I wrote this video, I scripted it in a coffee shop. They're back down to 25%-ish capacity inside. The tables are social distance, but when you sit down, you can take your mask off to eat or drink. And that's the current state here in New Orleans. Now, if we take it down to Florida, they just act like 2020 never happened. So depending on where you are and where you're watching this, just understand your perspective of the entire situation is affected by your community and how you have seen it, approached it, and been affected by it, especially if you have family members in your close community, family members that were affected by it. Maybe you lost a family member. Just understand that as I'm going through this, the perspective varies so far across the board. Okay, so I'm gonna break it down to why you should buy tickets and why you should not buy tickets, because there are two sides of this coin. We're gonna start over here on the why you should side. You should because tickets are cheap. Tickets are priced, international flight tickets and even national flight tickets are priced at the COVID current price for like 6 months down the line. And when I saw personally that the vaccine was coming out, now whether or not you believe in the vaccine or whatever, that's besides the point. It's about a social structure. It's about a whole system we're talking about here. When I saw the vaccine come out, I started buying tickets immediately because I knew the ball would be rolling and hopefully 6 months down the line, I'll be good to go. Can I guarantee that? No, but I'm confident enough to put my money on it that in 6 months time, traveling will be a lot more frequent and a lot easier. If you buy tickets right now for June and July, in January, right now for June and July, I think you will save a ton of money, especially when you're talking about international flights. For example, personally, I just bought a few plane tickets right around the Christmas time, and I bought them internationally and nationally. I got tickets from New Orleans to Philadelphia for $10.99 after tax. $10 an hour, straight, no stops, no nothing, $10.99. I bought tickets to Nairobi, Kenya from Philadelphia for $628 round trip. I bought tickets to Hawaii from Los Angeles for $198 on Delta round trip. That includes bags. And I bought a ticket from Florida to Peru for $85 after tax. Now, I do use a service called Pomelo. I love them. I'm gonna talk a little bit more about them later in this video. It is an amazing resource. It's probably one of my favorite. It's not probably, it is one of my favorite resources as a budget traveler. And like I said, I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the video. Point number 2 on why you should buy tickets right now, because hopefully it'll be safer. Now, I'm no doctor, I'm no professional, but watching the trends and watching what's happening, Qantas is coming back in July. There's some things happening that are pointing towards us getting out of this slump. The vaccine came out. Countries are already pushing it through their people. Israel just made it through, I think it was 14% of their population in 1 week of vaccinations. Like, this thing is happening quick. It wasn't called Operation Warp Speed for no reason. Countries are going to pump through this, and hopefully their traveling economy will follow suit. Right now, many countries are requiring a negative COVID test when traveling to their country if they're allowing foreign tourists to come in. Now, it's hard to know and hard to understand what countries are open, what are the restrictions, where do I find the research, how can I compile a list of the countries that I want to go to with ones that are open, so on and so forth. And that's another thing that website Pomelo that I've been using for traveling and getting flights will do for you. It's a subscription based. This company is amazing, but let me explain to you how I use them. So Pomelo will send you emails on a frequent basis, usually in bulk, so like 4 or 5 emails at a time. And those emails will include very cheap flight tickets that they either found that are just cheap because of COVID right now, or an airline's misprices a flight. So like a flight, say my flight later this spring from Philadelphia to Kenya, maybe they accidentally input a 4 instead of a 7 on the pricing, or something happens where there's a mistake fare. They capitalize on that. They must have some like automated system that just check flights and prices and all that frequently, but they capitalize, they find that, and then they send it out to their subscribers so you can see it as soon as possible. Because once airlines figure it out or the price goes up, at least you had an opportunity before the price went up to jump in on it. So it is a little bit of a quick turnaround thing, so you got to be kind of looking for it. But if you are a budget traveler and you have an open schedule, this is great. Now, this service is $30 a year, but if you think about it from a traveling perspective, $30 is not that much to potentially save you hundreds. Like I said, I bought a ticket from New Orleans to Philadelphia, one way, no stop, for $10.99. That's ludicrous. I could buy 3 of those tickets for 1 subscription. I bought my ticket from Nairobi or from Philadelphia to Nairobi for $628. That's like $1,000 ticket most of the year. This $30 investment is going to be a net positive, even if you're gonna travel once internationally this upcoming year. Plus, like I was saying, they're a great resource for COVID traveling to know when countries are open, how open they are, if they're opening soon, if they're completely closed down. They have a running list that they've been working on since COVID started that they send out and update on a frequent basis that breaks it down for you. Red is no-go, yellow is opening soon, green is open, and they will link the government website so you can find more information all in one list. That is worth $30 in itself. The link for Pomelo is down in the description. If you're a budget traveler, I can say with 90% confidence, if you purchase the subscription, it will be the best purchase that you make in 2021. Big claim, but that's how much I stand by it. Now, the last reason you should buy tickets internationally right now is because countries will literally pay you to go travel there. A few examples, I put all these in the description below, but New Brunswick, Canada has a 20% travel rebate. So after you travel there, all of your expenditures, I'm not sure what it covers, how much it covers, but your expenditures, I believe, on the travel and accommodation are at least rebated 20%. I'll put the link in the description. The second one is Switzerland. They have Geneva, I think is how you say it, Geneva boxes, where they have bundle packages with the accommodation and events and what you're gonna do while you're there, but they've heavily discounted them up to like 65% off. That link's in the description as well. And the last place that I have on my list for places that will literally put money in your pocket to go travel there is Cancun. They have a 2-for-1. It's basically a buy one, get one on accommodation. Pay for a night and they'll give you a night. There's one other thing that I saw in the news this morning that American Airlines yesterday, I'm sorry, I missed the deadline. It was only for yesterday, but American Airlines was giving away free child tickets if you purchased a full price adult ticket to the Caribbean islands. So if you wanted to buy a ticket to go to the Caribbean islands and you had a kid, that kid would go for free. For my budget travelers out there, before I get any further, if you're getting any value out of this video, click that like button. And if you want to see more videos about travel, self-development, and love in action, click the subscribe button. And now we'll get to why you should not buy tickets for this summer. Number 1 for why you should not buy tickets coming up internationally to travel across the ocean is if you're afraid. Duh. If you're nervous about the virus, if you're nervous to travel internationally, if you're nervous to bring it home to grandma, if you're nervous or afraid of the virus in any way, don't buy tickets. It's that simple. I'm not telling you that you need to travel. I'm just telling you that if you want to travel, and if you're like me as a young travel budgeter, now is perfect. But if it's not, it's not. You have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, how comfortable am I traveling? Number 2 for why you should not buy tickets internationally right now is if your life is very scheduled. If you have a very scheduled life, travel at all in the last year and potentially in the next 6 months to a year could be complicated. Things might move around, flights might get canceled, countries might come out and say, hey, if you're from the US, you need a vaccination to come into our country, and then you don't have the vaccination, but it's only 2 weeks out before you're supposed to go there, and it's 3 weeks to get a vaccine, and then you gotta deal with airlines, and nobody wants to deal with airlines when it comes to fares. Good luck getting that money back. Reason number 3 why you shouldn't buy international flight tickets right now is if you don't trust the vaccine. There's a ton of debate going back and forth on you should take the vaccine, you should not take the vaccine. If you do not choose to take the vaccine and you do not trust it, then don't plan any travel. Because like I just said a second ago, if a country comes out and says, hey, you have to have a vaccine to come into our country, if you aren't going to get the vaccine, then you're putting yourself in a conflict. You either miss your trip or you have to get the vaccine. If you don't trust it, I mean, I understand it was called operation, that's the word they used, Operation Warp Speed. So I can understand if you're a little bit hesitant on it, especially to get it in the first go around. But if that's the case, don't book travel. And number 4, for why you should not buy international flight tickets for this summer in January, is you're not a budget traveler. If you're not a budget traveler, why risk the headache of dealing with moving your flights around, moving stuff around, dealing with the vaccine if you're not on a budget? If you're not balling on a budget, then just wait until you can get the tickets for sure and go when you need to. Must be a luxury. Well, those are my reasons why you should and should not buy tickets internationally for this summer. If you're a budget traveler like me, I think it is a great time to get in on some flights early and cheap, especially if you use Pomelo. That link is in the description. I do have them as an affiliate partner, so anytime you click on that link and then purchase the subscription, I do get a little kickback. So if you plan on getting Pomelo and subscribing and saving yourself some money in the future, please use that link. I would appreciate it. Like the channel if you got any. Like the channel, that doesn't make any sense. Like this video if you got anything from it. Subscribe if you feel so inclined and want to see more videos on travel, self-development, and love in action. Until next time, I'm Ryan Fila, and you try to live your dream. Peace.